back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our discussion that was on distinguishing between fact and opinion. What we did in part 1, we discussed the basic key differences between fact and opinion and how to find out them while reading. Now let's continue our discussion by distinguishing between relevant and irrelevant information while reading a text. So, distinguishing between relevant and irrelevant information according to purpose for reading. This is another essential reading skill. Why it is another essential reading skill? Because it is the ability to identify relevant and irrelevant information based on reader's purpose, why they are reading. Relevant information is the information that directly supports, explains, or contributes to the reader's goal or the topic being studied. Irrelevant information, in contrast, is any detail that does not relate to the main idea or that distracts from the intended purpose, why we are reading. That is the intention. For instance, if your purpose is to understand a scientific theory, relevant details might include experiments, data, and conclusions that validate it. Irrelevance, conversely, refers to information that, while possibly accurate or engaging, does not align with your goal. It could be off-topic anecdotes, unrelated statistics, or background that's too broad for the topic which you are reading. The key is context. Relevance is purpose-driven. A detail about an author's childhood might be irrelevant when analyzing their novel's plot, but it will be highly relevant if studying biographical influences on their writing. Remember, irrelevance is not bad information. It's just not useful right now when you are reading. Skilled readers, what they do, they actively filter by asking, does this help achieve my purpose? Why I am reading this? This prevents information overload and sharpens focus of the reader. Understanding this difference allows readers to focus their attention efficiently and avoid wasting time on unnecessary details while reading a text. For instance, if a student is reading an article to find the causes of global warming, relevant information would include scientific explanations, greenhouse gas data, or industrial effects on the climate. However, information about unrelated or irrelevant topics such as a description of the author's vacation or a general history of weather forecasting, what it could do, it would be irrelevant in this context. The same information might become relevant, however, if the purpose of reading were different, such as analyzing the author's personal experiences or writing style or the influence of writer's life on his writing. This shows that relevance depends not just on the content of the text, but also on the reader's objective. In academic and professional reading, recognizing relevance is crucial. Why it is crucial? For effective note-taking, for summarizing, and for research purposes. Readers must constantly ask themselves, does this detail help me answer my question? Does this detail help me understand my topic? Or does this detail help me achieve my purpose? Skilled readers preview the text before reading fully. Why? Because they identify key sections that are likely to contain relevant information. They also ignore or skim over sections that do not serve their immediate purpose. This selective attention improves both comprehension and efficiency of a reader and make them a skilled reader. So a practical example can illustrate this. Suppose you are reading a report on the impact of social media on education. If your purpose is to find evidence about how social media affects students' study habits, data on screen time, concentration levels, or academic performance would be relevant for such kind of text. However, details about the founder of a social media company or a list of unrelated social media trends would be irrelevant for your purpose. So, there are some strategies which help to identify relevant information. So, what are these strategies? Now, how do you practically distinguish? This is the basic question. And how to answer this question? First, clarify your purpose explicitly. Write it down if needed. What is your purpose? Why you are reading? Second, scan the text for the structure. The structure includes titles, headings, topic sentences, and conclusions often highlight core ideas. You can get major ideas from conclusions as well. Third, use questioning techniques. For each paragraph or section, ask several questions like how does this connect to my goal, to my purpose of reading? If it doesn't, flag it as irrelevant. Fourth, look for signals like transitions. Transition words includes however, in addition, furthermore that link ideas or digressions, for example, on a side note that indicate tangents. Fifth, prioritize primary sources or direct evidence over secondary commentary unless your purpose requires it. Finally, practice active reading. Highlight relevant parts, note irrelevancies, and summarize the content or the text in your own words. Over time, this becomes intuitive. Tools like mind maps can visualize connections, helping separate the wheat from the chaff. Remember, cultural or personal biases might influence what you deem relevant, so strive for objectivity. Strategies for spotting and handling irrelevant information. How to spot them, how to find out them from the text. Irrelevant information often sneaks in as a fluff, appealing but unhelpful. They don't help the reader. They don't match the purpose of the reader. Common types include unrelated examples, excessive details which are irrelevant, opinions, and especially the opinions which are concealed as facts, which are presented as facts but they are opinions, or historical asides not tied to the main point or the main topic. To handle it, skim or skip it without guilt. Don't feel obligated to read everything. If it's marginally related, note it for future reference, but don't let it derail you from the major purpose of your reading. In digital reading, hyperlinks can lead to rabbit holes. Evaluate before clicking. You have to make evaluations. For longer text, create a relevance checklist based on your purpose. If irrelevance dominates, question the source's quality and then change your text. Importantly, what seems irrelevant might reveal gaps in your purpose. Refine it if needed. This skill is iterative. With practice, you will read faster and retain more and more of the relevant information. So, for the purpose of examining how climate change affects polar bear populations, consider this paragraph. Rising global temperatures due to greenhouse gas emissions are causing Arctic sea ice to melt at an unprecedented rate, which directly impacts polar bears' hunting grounds. These animals rely on ice platforms to hunt seals, which are their primary food source. Without them, bears must swim longer distances, leading to exhaustion and higher mortality rates among cubs. Studies show that polar bear populations have declined by up to 30% in some regions over the past decade. In contrast, grizzly bears in North America have adapted well to forested environments, often foraging for berries and fish. Conservation efforts such as reducing carbon emissions are crucial to preserving polar bear habitats. The details in the passage on sea ice melting, hunting challenges, population decline, and conservation needs are relevant because they tie directly to climate change's effects on polar bears. These details are relevant for the text which we have discussed earlier. The information about grizzly bears adaptations is irrelevant. Why it is irrelevant? Because it introduces a comparison to an other species that does not advance the understanding of polar bear's specific plight. So that's how you distinguish relevant information from irrelevant information present within the same text. The ability to distinguish between relevant and irrelevant information is also central to critical reading. Why it is central to critical reading? Because it helps prevent information overload. Information overload, a common issue in today's digital world. By training the reader to separate essential ideas from distracting or superficial ones. It encourages purposeful reading, where every detail is evaluated in light of its contribution to the reader's understanding or research aim. So, in summary, relevance is determined not only by what the text says, but by why the reader is reading it. Remember, we talked about the purpose of the reader, why they are reading. A purposeful reader always knows what to look for and what to ignore. That's how you distinguish between what is needed and what is not. So, in wrapping up, distinguishing relevant from irrelevant information empowers you to read smarter, not harder. Remember, work hard, smart, not hard. By anchoring in your purpose, employing strategies like questioning and scanning, and practicing with examples, what you will do, you will navigate texts with precision, with clarity. Applying this in daily life, in studying, where it aids exam preparation, in work for report synthesis, or in leisure to enjoy books without tangents. Challenge yourself. Next time you read, define your purpose first and filter actively the information from the text. So, in our next session, we'll discuss another interesting topic. Thank you for staying engaged, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts in our discussion forum. Thank you.